The Civil War, although moving further and further into our nation's past, has left a legacy of heartache and heroism that affects us today. We are still moved by those stories of brothers fighting brothers and fathers fighting sons. One such tragedy occurred in 1862 during the Peninsula Campaign, but unlike so many others, this sacrifice had eternal consequences. It left a piece of the soul of the entire nation that can still be heard wafting across cemeteries today. It all began at Harrison's Landing, Virginia, in the aftermath of a battle. A certain Union captain by the name of Ellicombe and his men stumbled upon the bodies of several Confederate soldiers. Ellicombe ordered his men to bury them, and as they were doing so, he surveyed the faces of the young men who had been cut down in the flower of their youth. Suddenly, to his horror, he spied the face of one he knew. It was that of his own son. Part of Ellicombe's shock stemmed from the fact that he had not known that his son had joined any army, much less the Confederate Army. The boy had been studying music in the South when the war began. After hostilities broke out, communications broke down. But Ellicombe assumed that his son would be safe as long as he continued his study of music. Unfortunately for the younger Ellicombe, such was not the case. The boy left school to join the Confederate forces. Captain Ellicombe tenderly searched his son's pockets, and among his personal items he found a scrap of paper with some music written on it. He handed it to his bugler and asked him if he could play the tune. When the bugler said he could, the captain asked for and received permission to give his son a special burial. As the lad was consigned to the grave, the bugler played the musical notes that had been scribbled on the piece of paper carried by young Ellicombe. The sound of the music as it drifted across the countryside that morning sent chills up the spines of everyone within ear sound, including Captain Ellicombe's division commander, General Daniel Butterfield. When he heard the music, the general inquired of his captain, whence came the notes. Ellicombe gave Butterfield the paper that had been retrieved from his son's pocket. The general had it copied and then gave it to his own bugler, Oliver Morton, and ordered him to prepare a new bugle call from the Ellicombe music. It was such a beautiful melody and so simple that it caught on quickly among all buglers, and before the war was over, buglers on both sides were playing the piece at graveside ceremonies. By some strange twist of fate, the notes of that scribbled song carried by a schoolboy in the American Civil War went on to become the bugle call for funerals around the world. Today, we call the music taps, and it is still being played, especially for military services, for it signals the end of a soldier's struggle as he's laid to rest. Hi, my name is Tim Gorey, and I wanted to bring a special message to you today to announce a new podcast, a video podcast that I'm working on with a number of friends of mine. As I read that story for the first time, I really thought about what parallels it might have for us today. During a civil war, a father against son, brother against brother. These are stories that we've heard before, but it has a special poignance for me, and probably for you as well, in the political environment that we are in today in our country. And it's not unusual to have friends and family members be pitted against each other ideologically right now, and living in this community in Solano County. One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is how we tone down the rhetoric, how we listen to each other, how we find ways to really have a conversation. And in that conversation, we find more of who the other person is, and when we when we really find that other person in that conversation, well, it makes it more difficult to demonize the other person. And so in my job, I spend a lot of time connecting with people in the community. I work for the Fairfield-Suisun Unified School District, and I live in Fairfield. And my role as public information officer and community engagement person, I get to meet people from all over the community, especially leaders, elected leaders and leaders of organizations, both companies and government organizations and agencies. And as I've met those folks over the last year, what I found is that we have a lot of great people in leadership positions in our area. And yet it's so easy to demonize them and demonize the things that they do and the decisions that they make based on a 30-second or 1 minute soundbite that comes from the news media, or based on a few sentences that's written on a Facebook page somewhere. And that's it. We demonize, and then we pick sides and we go at each other. And one of the things that I've found as I've had the opportunity to really meet these people is that as you go deeper and you find out who they really are, well, it gives you a different perspective that allows you to understand where they're coming from when it comes to the decisions that they make and the things that they do. And so one of the things that I'd really like to do and achieve with this new podcast, we're calling it Community Conversations. Once a week, I'm going to work on having different community leaders into the podcast to have a conversation. It may last an hour, may last 2 hours. I'm not quite sure. But I'm willing to let the conversation go where it will. It's like sitting down with a friend and having some coffee and then recording that and letting everybody watch it. That's the idea. Hopefully, what we can do in this process is find a way to give people an inside look into who their community leaders are and what it is that they're doing and why they're doing it. And in doing that, maybe what we can do is create a larger community conversation that's civil and that's really, really positive for Solano County at large. And so that's the announcement. That's what we're doing. I'm hoping that it'll be something that'll be helpful, that'll be something that'll be enlightening. I'm hoping that it'll be something that you watch and that you engage in. Hopefully, in the next week or so, there'll be a first episode. And when that comes out, I invite you to take a look, share it with your friends, and start engaging with me in that conversation. I'd be more than happy to field questions that you have. I'd be more than happy to consider bringing people on the show that you'd like to see. So get ready for that. We're going to advertise it on a number of different avenues. We'll have it on YouTube. We'll have it on my website. We'll have it as an iTunes podcast if you rather listen rather than watch. And we'll be advertising it through places like the Solano County Community Awareness Facebook page, which has more than 30,000 followers in Solano County now. And so hopefully we'll be able to get an audience that will really benefit from this kind of a conversation. I look forward to having a conversation with you through our new podcast, Community Conversations. Bye for now.